Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mindful of You podcast. This is an encore episode, Tough Love Self-Care. I'm sure you'll hear me introduce it again here in a minute. I decided to repost this episode as a part of the encore series that we're going to have over the next few months, just one every once in a while I am starting and getting used to grad school. This episode did really well, and I was really glad. I felt really passionate about the topic because as much as self-care can be going really easy on yourself, sometimes, depending on the context, it's going a little bit harder on yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you're all doing well. Have an amazing week. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mindful of You podcast. This is episode 45, Tough Love Self-Care. So it's been a minute since I've recorded, so I'm excited to get back to it. We're all settled into our new home, which is really exciting. We attended our new ward for the second time today, and it was good. I met a few people. It's a really big ward, so I feel like I'm kind of definitely able to just blend into the crowd a little bit, which is good and bad. So, but it's been going good. I had this idea a week or so ago to talk about tough love self-care because of some experiences that I've been having over the last month and even over the last year. Just learning to how to balance, so to speak, being tough on yourself versus taking care of yourself. Can they be the same thing? Could that be a form of self-care, or is it always a form of being mean to yourself to show yourself tough love? And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this concept. So there's been kind of a movement of self-care, of people allowing themselves to be kinder to themselves and trying to find ways to make their lives more balanced and do things they enjoy. Overall, this is a huge step in the right direction. I definitely don't think that this episode and these concepts I'm introducing are meant to replace any of those forms of self-care that you find helpful, like journaling or bubble baths or spending time with friends, doing things you love, going on walks. These things are not intended to serve as a replacement for that, right? I just wanted to look at the side of things where we do things to take care of ourselves that may not be as pleasant in the moment, but are going to serve us in the long term. So I've referred to this concept before of doing things for our future self. This is similar to that. So doing things now that are going to serve us in the long term. So I have 5 things I wanted to talk about that I've been trying to implement as a form of self-care that I see as a little bit more of tough love. So I'll go over those 5 things with you guys. Number 5 is my favorite, so make sure you stick around to number 5. So my number 1 is exercise. Some people enjoy exercise, and I have found that I now enjoy it as well, but I didn't always, and there are many forms of exercising that I do not enjoy. I do not enjoy running. I do not enjoy going to the gym very much, like weightlifting. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't really enjoy at-home workouts. I have a hard time motivating myself. So the form of exercise that I found that I really enjoy is aerial silks. There's some sacrifice that goes along with that, though. I drive 45 minutes to get to the studio that I like. So that's about 4.5 hours of my week spent driving, just because of this form of self-care. I've found that, especially since our move, it's very tempting to not go. And I've become a lot more strict with myself and pushing myself to go. Past me might have seen it as a form of self-care to not go. And sometimes that might be the case, and that may be what I choose, but I've found 99% of the time, the truest form of self-care I can do is to push myself to go. because once I'm there, I really, really enjoy myself. It's a creative expression for me, and I also am getting stronger. I'm surrounding myself with like-minded women, and it's really fun. So even though in the moment it feels like I'm being a little mean to myself, or my husband or my mom or my sister might say, it's okay, you don't have to go this time. And it's true, it's okay. We never have to beat up on ourselves. There's no reason for that. But I find that when I do go, I find that I feel even better about myself than when I skip. A lot of times when I skip, I don't have plans for the evening, so then I spend a lot of time laying around, not really working towards anything, which is fine again at sometimes, but most of the time I find I feel so much better, and I'm getting closer to meeting those long-term goals when I practice some tough love and I go. So that was my number one. My number two is staying on top of deadlines. So I am in one class right now, and I also work full time, and I have to meet some deadlines for work as well. Those are usually not too difficult for me, and the homework's not too bad either. So this was probably more applicable when I was more heavily in school, and I'll be in 2 classes next semester. So I think it's going to become even more of a thing for me. But I also used to see it as a form of self-care to allow myself to push deadlines or not get things done in the name of relaxing, in the name of taking care of myself. And again, sometimes that might be the right decision, but I have found that most of the time it's not. The reason I have for this is because the more we push deadlines or the more we don't do something, the more stressed we're going to feel, right? So it can be a form of self-care that even in the moment, if you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling on top of yourself, if you're feeling like, oh, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to do this, but in the long term, it's going to add more to your plate, I don't know if that's a true form of self-care. Now, sometimes it might be necessary. Sometimes we're sick. We can't go to work, and that's okay. And then we do everything we can to get caught up. Sometimes we just miss a deadline by accident, and then we're a little stressed, and then we get caught up in the best time that we can. But I have found that when I practice some tough love and I say, you know what, no, we're going to get up, we're going to go to work, because if we don't, those students are all going to reschedule to talk to you tomorrow, and we'll be facing the exact same dilemma tomorrow. And so I've found that when I push myself and I do it, my overall health is better, because the work is spread out across more time. Even if I have some days where it does feel like I'm fatigued or like I can't do it, I find the appropriate time to catch up on rest, rather than doing that at a time where I should be meeting my deadlines. My number 3 is brutal self-reflection. I've found that I have a tendency, and I think a lot of us do, to blame other people for how I'm feeling, to blame my spouse or maybe my family for the feelings I'm facing or any dissatisfaction I have. And it's not pleasant to get introspective a lot of the times and look at, what am I doing that's causing this unpleasantness in my life? But as you get a little bit tough with yourself and look at, what am I thinking? What am I not doing? What am I doing that might be causing this type of thing? You're empowering yourself to be able to take action on those things rather than letting the blame sit on other people. I found that it's hard to do this because then it's your responsibility to take action. And sometimes that's scary and it's hard. It's hard to take the next step to become a better person or to reach your goals. It's easier to decide that outside forces or influences are the issue, the problem, that it's not you. And this episode is difficult for me to phrase because you guys know how much I believe that beating up on yourself is not going to get you anywhere. But what I'm referring to here isn't beating up on yourself. It is giving yourself some constructive criticism. And so as long as it's constructive, it's something you can take action on, I actually think it is helpful, even if it stings a little bit in the moment. My number 4 is cleaning my house. Oh gosh, guys, this house is big and that is a huge blessing. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, my life is so hard. I have this big house I have to clean. Like, that's horrible. But it's hard to keep up on. And I have an immense amount of support from my spouse. He does, I would say, more than I do around here. But it feels like there's a lot to do, a lot to clean up, and a lot to make sure we maintain. The reason it's important to me to have a clean house is so that things don't pile up, right? I feel like it's similar to the deadlines where, okay, say the dishes sit in the sink for a night, they're not going to get done. That's okay, but they're still going to be there tomorrow. And so, then having 2 days of dishes in the sink, that's going to feel a lot less tolerable, and it's going to take even longer to do. So I try and push myself in the evenings when I'm tired after work and I just want to be done to go ahead and do those dishes, to start that load of laundry, to fold that load of laundry, and make sure that things are getting done at a more regular rate. I think this would be next to impossible by myself, so I'm really glad that there's another person who's also pushing himself to accomplish these things. And it's not perfect, right? And that's not the goal here. The goal here is to just show yourself a little bit of tough love sometimes so that in the long run, you don't have to spend a full Saturday getting your house to a state where it's livable, right? We're kind of keeping up on it every little bit at a time. If my mom's listening, she's probably like, I told you this with your room. I would let my room get horrible, and then I'd have to take a full day and just clean it if I wanted to go do something with my friends, rather than just hanging my clothes up when I was done with them. So it's definitely still trial and error for me, and it's gotten to the point where it's not like a self-esteem thing, right, or an image thing. I don't care if my house is cluttered for that reason, but I do care if it gets to the point where I no longer feel like it's livable, or I feel like, it's dirty or unpleasant to be in, and then I do have to do something about it. So it's easier to do small things to maintain that than do a big overhaul down the line. Okay, this is number 5, the one I was most excited to talk to you guys about. So number 5 is feeling anxious and uncomfortable, or allowing yourself to feel anxious and uncomfortable. So this is something I've really been practicing. I have been studying a lot and learning more about OCD, and a lot of the treatments for OCD go along with this idea of allowing anxiety and not doing compulsions to fix that anxiety, right? So if somebody has anxiety that, there's germs on their hands, the idea would be allowing that anxiety rather than compulsively washing their hands. So for me, it's usually in situations where it's more like maybe a situation comes up at work where I feel a little bit uncomfortable or stressed or nervous, rather than, calling out sick or asking somebody else to do it, or even just panicking and calling my mom, my sister, and my husband to talk me through it. I'm allowing that discomfort, right? I'm allowing myself to feel anxious, to feel uncomfortable. I have an episode called Processing Emotions that I would recommend if this is something that's difficult for you. Because feelings are just that, right? Just feelings. They can feel like something that's totally intolerable, but it is. There's something that passes, right? The reason it's such an important form of self-care to allow negative emotion is because if we don't, we might be engaging in compulsions or buffers or whatever you want to call them to get rid of this anxiety. We might be doing things that maybe they're bad habits, maybe they're neutral habits or whatever, but in the long run, they might be a waste of time. They might be something that's taking us away from doing things that help us progress to the person that we want to be. And at that point, it's not a form of self-care to do those things, right? Because we're not thinking about the long term or what we want to be doing, who we want to be becoming, because we're allowing these things to take over our lives, trying to get rid of this anxiety, trying to get rid of this discomfort, where really, if we allow it to be there and then keep doing the thing we actually want to do, I'm not talking about the thing that's like an instinct or that feels natural, like, oh, I'm just going to lay in bed. When you're your highest self, if what you would want to do is get to the gym, even though you feel anxious, you do that thing and you do it with the anxiety, right? You allow it to be in the back seat rather than yelling in your ear in the front seat or driving the car. So allowing some discomfort and pushing forward anyway, I think is ultimately a good thing. Now, like all things, this all comes with a disclaimer, right? Put this into the context of your situation. If you're pushing yourself to do things and you're only getting worse, you're only feeling worse, that might be a sign that it's time to go talk to somebody or get some help. If you feel like you're the type of person who has a hard time slowing down because of anxiety, so like if I stop, I'm going to feel anxious, that's something to look at too. Again, if the person you want to be is the person who can enjoy an hour on the couch watching TV, maybe you do that with some anxiety, right? So it's going to look different for every person, but it's being who you want to be despite the feelings that come along with it. If you let your feelings drive your life, it's going to be harder to create traction and make progress in the direction you want to go. So take these all with a grain of salt. I hope that you have the wherewithal to apply what works for you and discard what doesn't. And please put it into the context of your current situation, right? My situation is different from yours. How I've applied these things is going to be different from how you apply these things. Think about ways that you can practice a little bit of tough love though. But notice I leave that word love there. It's not hate. It's not disdain. It's not shame. It's still love. And so find ways that you can practice that and make it a part of your life so that you can make progress towards the person you want to be, so that you can love life, so that you can love the people in your life and just really make your mind a better place to live. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It was great to have you guys. I'm excited to chat with you next week. So make sure that you follow the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel so that we can chat every week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.